In this country, we say Happy New Year.
That's comedian Eddie Murphy's New Year's greeting in the movie Trading Places. It's one of a string of hits, and he may soon have another film to add to that list.
Yes, it's my comeback. Yes, it's my big comeback. Every 10 years or so, I launch a big comeback. I've been doing that for the last 40 years.
When Eddie Murphy first vanished from our screens after years of being on it non-stop, everyone thought he had disappeared because of the scandal. The jokes, the whispers, the whatever happened to Eddie stories that filled gossip blogs for years. People swore he got blacklisted, that Hollywood turned its back, that something dark went down behind the scenes. But the truth? It was quieter than anyone imagined. Eddie wasn't running from Hollywood. He just walked away from it. After a streak of films that even he admits were bad, an Oscars hosting gig that fell apart overnight, and a family that needed him more than the spotlight did, he decided to stop, on purpose. For almost a decade, the loudest man in comedy said nothing. No movies, no interviews, just life. And when he finally came back, it wasn't luck or hype that brought him back. It was choice. Now let's unpack what really happened.
So much has changed. I actually just had a new baby just about a year ago. That means I have 10 kids now. 11 if you count Kevin Hart.
The reputation slide in real time. A lot of people have this belief that Hollywood stars just fade from the limelight overnight. Well, they don't. Not exactly. Most of the time, it happens slowly, quietly. You just don't notice until one day their name feels like a memory instead of a headline. For Eddie Murphy, that slide began in the early 2000s. The man who gave us Beverly Hills Cop, Trading Places, and Coming to America suddenly found himself fronting movies no one wanted to see. Pluto Nash, Meet Dave, Imagine That. Titles that felt like they were written by people who didn't understand what made Eddie funny in the first place. Critics tore them apart, the box office tanked, and for the first time in his career, Eddie's name didn't mean guaranteed laughs or sold-out theaters. It meant risk. The same audiences who once hung on his every word were now kind of done. Then came the ultimate humiliation. The Razzies. Worst actor of the decade. That one stung. He'd gone from being the most electric presence in comedy to the guy Hollywood used as a punchline. It was brutal. And honestly, Eddie didn't hide from it. Years later, he admitted it himself, said he was making S********Y movies, and that it finally caught up with him. You could hear the exhaustion behind that honesty. The truth is, he didn't lose his talent. He lost the spark, the joy, the reason he ever stepped in front of a camera in the first place. Because when every set feels like a paycheck, not a playground, even legends start to look tired. So he did something most people in Hollywood never do. He stopped. No big announcement, no meltdown, just silence. By 2011, he quietly slipped out of view. No new films, no late-night appearances. Just a man who decided to pause the circus before it consumed him. And just when it looked like he might finally be ready to reset his career, something happened that flipped everything upside down. A different stage, a bigger one, and it all fell apart overnight.
I love Norbit. You know, Norbit came out when, right after I got the Oscar nomination. So it was like, it was kind of like, there were articles, it was like, how can he get an Oscar and he did this? It's like, that's two different movies.
The movie that ended the Oscar dream, award season 2007. Eddie Murphy was finally getting his flowers. After years of being boxed in as the funny guy, Dreamgirls proved he could go deep, dramatic, vulnerable. That performance had Oscar written all over it. Critics said it was his best work since 48HR's studios were already polishing that Academy Award winner Eddie Murphy tagline. But then, Norbit happened. It dropped just weeks before the Oscars. Loud, cartoonish, everything the Academy hates. Fat suits, fart jokes, the complete opposite of prestige. Suddenly, the same people who were calling him a lock for Best Supporting Actor started whispering that he'd blown it. Tabloids turned the whole thing into a circus. How can you give a man an Oscar when he's out here playing a caricature in a fat suit? It was unfair, but that's how Hollywood works. Timing matters more than talent sometimes. When Alan Arkin's name got called instead, cameras caught Eddie's face. He smiled, clapped, then slipped out of the ceremony before the credits rolled. That tiny moment launched another wave of headlines. Eddie storms out of the Oscars. Murphy can't handle losing. The same industry that cheered for his comeback suddenly turned on him again. But here's the irony. Norbit was actually a box office hit. Audiences laughed, kids quoted it. Eddie made millions. It's just that critics decided Norbit wasn't respectable comedy. And that label, lowbrow, stuck to him like glue. Years later, he defended the film, said it wasn't his worst, and he's right. Pluto Nash still holds that crown. But back then, Norbit became shorthand for career killer. It was the punchline everyone used to explain why Eddie fell off. In reality, he was still working, still funny, still rich. He just wasn't shiny enough for awards season anymore. And when Hollywood started to turn the volume down, Eddie decided to pull the plug himself. Because right after that awards heartbreak, another stage came calling. A stage that should have been his big redemption, until it blew up in flames.
It'd be easier to name the 4 worst movies.
Let's hear them. What do you got?
Pluto Nash, Holy Man.
Some say Norbit, but I like Norbit.
I love Norbit.
The night the Oscars gig died, so fast forward a few years. Eddie's Oscar moment didn't pan out. Norbit still followed him around like a bad rumor, and suddenly, boom! The Academy calls again. This time not for an award, but for the big job, hosting the Oscars, the most watched night in Hollywood. And honestly, it made perfect sense. No one could command a room like Eddie Murphy. The charisma, the timing, that unpredictable energy, people were excited. Headlines called it his redemption arc. Finally, Eddie was stepping back into the spotlight, not as a nominee, but as the showman he'd always been. Then came Brett Ratner. Ratner, the director of Tower Heist, was producing that year's Oscars. And if you remember, Eddie was starring in Tower Heist too. It was their comeback moment. Until Ratner opened his mouth at a press event and dropped a homophobic slur that detonated in seconds. Social media caught fire, the Academy freaked out, and Ratner was forced to resign. Now here's where things got messy. The moment Ratner walked, Eddie did too. Some people called it loyalty, others said it was ego. But if you ask me, it was pride. Eddie had no interest in cleaning up someone else's scandal. He wanted no part of the circus.
Eddie Murphy will no longer be hosting the 84th Annual Academy Awards.
And just like that, the big comeback that could have rewritten his story evaporated overnight. The show went on without him. Billy Crystal stepped in, safe, predictable. The headlines turned cold again. He quit the Oscars. Eddie flakes out. He's done. No one cared that the reason was someone else's mess. The narrative stuck. Eddie couldn't play nice with Hollywood. But honestly, I get it. After years of being everyone's punchline, maybe he didn't owe the industry a performance anymore. Maybe walking away was the only real power move left. So where do you go when the loudest stage in the world disappears overnight?
Do you ever think about legacy?
My legacy is my children.
Dad first. After the Oscars fallout, Eddie did something Hollywood didn't expect. He disappeared. Not in a scandal kind of way, in a real life is calling kind of way. Because behind all the lights, Eddie Murphy wasn't just a movie star. He was a dad, a serious dad, 10 kids, ranging from toddlers to full-grown adults. Different moms, different households, but all connected by him. And if you've ever seen Eddie talk about his family, you can tell he's proud. He once said, "My legacy is my children." Simple, right? But think about that for a second. This is a guy who's been famous since his early 20s. He could have chased every script, every check, every comeback headline. Instead, he stayed home. School runs, birthdays, backyard cookouts, the kind of stuff most A-listers hand off to assistants. And that choice wasn't glamorous. It didn't make magazine covers. But it gave him peace. Eddie's friends said he looked happy for the first time in years. No pressure to be funny. No studios breathing down his neck. Just mornings without alarms, days without meetings, and nights where the only audience was his family laughing at dinner. Of course, tabloids couldn't process that. Hollywood doesn't know what to do with someone who chooses to walk away. They spun it as Eddie's downfall, when really, it was Eddie's reset. He'd been going non-stop since Saturday Night Live in the 80s. Imagine living 4 decades in front of a camera. Maybe disappearing wasn't a breakdown. Maybe it was self-preservation. And look, we're not saying he became some suburban dad in sweatpants flipping pancakes every morning. But in those years, Eddie Murphy, the loudest, flashiest man in comedy, went quiet. And in that quiet, something shifted. The spotlight dimmed. The gossip grew louder. And soon people started rewriting his story for him. Because while Eddie was finding peace at home, the internet was cooking up its own version of what happened next.
I said, but I just feel that we have to be recognized as people. I just want you to know, I'm gonna give this award, but black people will not ride the caboose of society and we will not bring up the rear anymore. And I want you to recognize it.
The rumor mill versus receipts. Let's talk about the stories people think they know. Because while Eddie was chilling at home, Hollywood couldn't sit still. When a star goes quiet, the gossip industry fills the silence. And with Eddie, they went wild. Some people swore it all started back in the 90s, the infamous late-night traffic stop in 1997. He'd been pulled over with a transgender woman in the car, and tabloids had a field day. But the real truth? He wasn't charged with anything. He said he was just giving someone a ride. But gossip doesn't care about context. It cares about clicks. Then came the Mel B saga in 2006. Eddie and Mel, yes, that Mel B from the Spice Girls, had a short relationship. She got pregnant. He asked for a paternity test. The tabloids exploded. Eddie Murphy denies baby. Hollywood's funniest man turns cold. Turns out the test confirmed he was the father. They moved on. The internet didn't. By the time Eddie decided to step back, these old stories were repackaged like they were fresh scandals. Blacklisted. Canceled before cancel culture. Reddit threads, gossip blogs, and YouTube channels all tried to guess what really happened. Here's what actually happened. Nothing. No secret ban, no Hollywood takedown, no conspiracy. Eddie just stopped showing up. And in a business that moves 100 miles an hour, disappearing voluntarily feels like career suicide. But he didn't see it that way. He said, "I stopped making movies in 2011. I just didn't want to make bad ones anymore." Think about that. The man who built his empire on non-stop work finally decided to say no to every script, every call, every comeback headline. So while gossip writers were inventing scandals, Eddie was taking his kids to school. While Reddit was debating why Hollywood abandoned him, he was cooking breakfast, watching basketball, and minding his business. That's the part no one saw coming. He didn't need to be rescued, and when the time came for his comeback, he didn't chase it. He waited for it, because if scandal didn't push him out, what did pull him back in?
Sometimes you get stuff and it's just, okay, this is the movie you're making, and okay, you're kind of just doing this because they gave you a big check, and you kind of, so you're not engaged, you're just kind of walking through it.
The script filter. Eddie says no. Here's where it gets interesting. When Eddie finally decided to make his comeback to the big screens, he didn't just jump into the first flashy offer he got. Nope, he had a rule now. If it didn't feel right, it wasn't happening. After years of saying yes to everything, he'd learned the power of no. He told interviewers, "I'm not doing any more movies unless everything's right." And you could tell he meant it. For Eddie, right didn't mean big paychecks or franchise deals. It meant heart. It meant something that reminded him why he fell in love with this business in the first place. And Hollywood noticed that shift. Studios sent him scripts hoping to cash in on nostalgia. But Eddie wasn't biting. Shrek 5? Pass. Random buddy cop reboot? No thanks. He wanted a project that fit, that had grit, rhythm, soul, the same kind of magic that got him noticed back in the 80s. Then came Dolomite Is My Name. When Eddie read that script, he saw himself in Rudy Ray Moore, the forgotten entertainer who refused to quit. The guy people laughed at until he made them laugh with him. Eddie said that film reminded me why I ever wanted to make movies.
Dolomite is my name, and fucking up motherfuckers is my game.
It was meta, really. Eddie playing a man clawing his way back into relevance while Eddie himself was quietly doing the same. Only this time it wasn't about survival, it was about joy. And the result? Critics loved it. Fans loved it. Awards buzz returned. Suddenly the same media that once buried him was calling it the comeback of the decade. But the truth is, Eddie didn't come back for them. He came back for him. That one film reignited the fire, the swagger, the confidence. And once that filter worked, once he remembered how good it could feel to do it his way, the old magic didn't take long to return.
Did you have a good time?
I never have fun making a movie.
You don't?
No, it's fun because the process it's hard for me to hold this thing, waiting all the time, and it's a lot of waiting.
The comeback that felt effortless. When Dolomite Is My Name hit Netflix in 2019, it felt like Eddie Murphy had never left. The jokes were sharp, the energy was back. Even his walk had that same confident bounce we hadn't seen in years. It didn't look like a comeback. It looked like a reminder, because that's the thing about Eddie. When he's good, he's so good you forget he ever missed a step. The movie pulled in glowing reviews, award nominations, and suddenly everyone was calling it the Eddie Murphy Renaissance. Twitter was full of clips of his interviews again. People couldn't believe how natural he still was. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he returned to Saturday Night Live for the first time in 35 years. And that monologue? Pure gold. He walked out to thunderous applause, cracked jokes about his kids, and even teased Bill Cosby. You could see the cast behind him trying not to break character. It was that electric.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Murphy!
That single night reminded everyone why Eddie was the guy. He wasn't chasing trends or begging for relevance. He was just being himself. Then came Coming to America. The nostalgia was thick, sure, but it worked. Fans got to see the king return to Zamunda, older, funnier, and way more self-aware. He leaned into the legacy instead of running from it. It was smart. Eddie knew audiences didn't want a reboot. They wanted a reunion, a victory lap. And the best part? He didn't overdo it. No world tour, no daily talk show appearances. Just a few projects done right. After all those quiet years, he came back with class, like he'd been saving his best material for when people least expected it. The same critics who once mocked him now call him a master of timing. They weren't wrong. Because after Dolomite, SNL, and Coming to America, Eddie had done something most actors can't pull off. He didn't just reclaim his career, he made it look effortless. And he wasn't done yet. Because next, he dusted off the badge that made him a star.
Yeah, this is the last episode of 2019, but if you're black, this is the first episode since I left back in 1984.
Reframing Eddie. By the time Beverly Hills Cop Axel F dropped in 2024, it was clear. Eddie Murphy hadn't made a comeback. He'd made a choice. The movie wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. It just had that spark again. That classic Eddie energy, the smirk, the laugh, the way he could walk into a scene and make it feel alive. Fans didn't watch it for nostalgia. They watched it to see if Eddie still had it. And yeah, he did. Effortlessly. Critics said he'd matured. I think he'd just stopped pretending. This wasn't the 1980s Eddie chasing headlines. This was a man in his 60s who'd been through the noise, the mockery, the silence, and found peace on the other side. He's not out here trying to prove anything. He's just working when it feels good. That's what makes it so satisfying to watch. You can feel it. And maybe that's the real twist in his story. Everyone thought scandal buried him. They thought Hollywood turned its back. But Eddie Murphy wasn't canceled. He was just bored. He took a break before burnout could take him out. Now, when he looks back on those rough years, he doesn't hide from them. He even defends some of those so-called flops. Says they all taught him something. Says they helped him figure out what not to do. That's classic Eddie turning L's into lessons. Axel F wasn't about reclaiming fame. It was about rewriting the narrative, showing the world that walking away doesn't mean you're gone. It means you're grounded. So maybe he didn't vanish. Maybe he just paused until the script matched the man he'd become. Because the truth is simple. Eddie Murphy didn't fade out, he evolved, and now he's exactly where he wants to be. Eddie Murphy didn't vanish like the media had you believe. He only stepped back until the work felt worth doing again. He went from blockbuster king to punchline to living legend, all without losing that spark that made him special in the first place. And honestly, it's kind of poetic. The man who built his career on laughter found peace in silence, then came back swinging when the timing felt right. Maybe that's the lesson here. Sometimes disappearing isn't failure, it's clarity. It's knowing when to walk off stage before the applause fades. Now he's doing things on his own terms. Movies that matter, projects that feel good. Family first, fame second. If this story flipped how you saw that quiet stretch in Eddie's life, hit subscribe so we can dive into more untold celebrity stories like this one. And drop your favorite Eddie Murphy moment in the comments. I'll be reading.